Everywhere we look, companies are trying to get us to buy something. Not because we need it, but because it looks good or it's cheap. Consuming so much is wrecking the planet.
In 2015, we sent 10 million tons of textiles to landfills in the US. That's the equivalent in weight to approximately 5 million cars, all of it in our landfills. And this is where you think, well, I don't throw my clothes in the garbage. I give it to people who need it, or I recycle it. The problem is the clothes you bring here or here doesn't always end up where you think it does.
This is a graveyard of unwanted clothes.
This warehouse in Miami takes in 120,000 pounds of clothes a week. So let's do that car comparison again. That's the weight of 30 cars getting delivered here every week.
People buy and they give it away, the clothing. They use it maybe 1, 2, 3 times, and they buy the new clothing. You know, this is a big difference. This country is a big difference with other countries.
Don Juan buys the clothes that Goodwill and Salvation Army receive from donations but can't sell in their stores. He then sells it to countries in Latin America.
Those countries, they got like a flea market, and that's where they sell the used clothing.
Those flea markets look like this. Tons of unwanted clothes from developed nations like the US getting resold for cheap.
So I think it helps a lot of poor people in all of those countries that they can afford to buy a new shirt for maybe $12, $13, $15, and they can buy a shirt for maybe $1, $2.
That sounds good in theory, but poorer countries are getting flooded with our used clothes. So much that in 2015, East African countries like Kenya tried to ban secondhand clothes from their markets. They said the influx of cheap clothes was destroying their local textile industry. But secondhand clothing is a multi-million-dollar industry in the US. And in 2018, the Trump administration threatened the East African nations with tariffs if they stopped taking our used clothes. And most of them backed down.
I think that the public highly misunderstands what donating your clothing is all about. If we continue to consume as much as we do, we're already flooding markets that don't need our clothing anymore. It may end up in the landfill as well.
Outside of Don Juan's warehouse, we saw a dumpster filled to the brim with clothes, headed to a landfill. That's also where some of the clothes you think are getting recycled end up. Less than 1% of clothes are recycled into new garments. But there's little transparency about what companies do with the rest. Take Miami Beach, for example. They contract with a company called Charity Recycling to pick up used textiles, but no one knows what they do with them. Charity Recycling is not telling the city, even though their contract requires them to, and they won't tell us, even though we've been asking them for months.
I think that the root of the problem is it's really mass consumption and mass production. You know what? I believe that the fashion industry take, make, waste model has to change into a circular one. They make low quality clothing that we wear once or twice and then it can fall apart. And then the consumer is buying it at such a low price that they don't really value it, and then they wear it once or twice and it goes into the landfill.
Don Juan doesn't fear running out of business anytime soon.
I don't think so that we will change our habit, you know, because we live in this country and that's the way we've been raised and we learn, you know, this kind of life.
But Forever 21 filed bankruptcy in October, and some say that was at least in part due to their inability to appeal to Gen Zers, Americans between the ages of 13 and 21. A study found that 94% of them believe companies should help address social and environmental issues. The question is whether companies and governments are listening.
Shalom. First and foremost, giving all glory, honor, and praise to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Racha Akodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teach and rule well. Shalom to the elect, pushing his truth in all sincerity in the four quarters of the earth. Lord willing, we be of that number. It's your brother Tobiah Yaquana coming at you with a quick hit, and Lord willing, it's edifying to an elect member. It's going to be entitled Excess Now, Famine Later, right? I just saw something on a little clip, all right? So as you saw in that clip, America is just full of excess, full of full of shit, right? So it's just a consumer-based nation, man. And that's one of the philosophies. That's part of the wine, man. You know, the idea that you have to just keep buying shit and keep buying shit. It's what keeps the wheels turning in America, man. You know, because it's entangled with the rest of the world. The scriptures speak on that whore, how the merchants of the. We'll go ahead and grab it. Go ahead and grab it, man. Revelation 18. All right, how these merchants lay down with this whore. The merchants of the world. Excuse me. All right, this is Revelation 18:3. For all nations, and that's all nations, all right, of the world, have drunk of the wine, and the wine goes into philosophies of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. So all these, higher ups in other countries, the prime ministers, and all these kings, quote unquote kings, they lay down with this whore, man, Babylon the Great. All right, it says, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Yeah, and so they get paid. They get a lot of money. Now let's jump down to verse 11. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her. Okay? Because when this place gets destroyed, when Babylon the Great, which is America, gets destroyed, they're going to be like, that was the cash cow. This is what was making us rich. All right? It says, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. All right, so that goes into the consumeration, or the how Babylon the Great is a huge consumer nation, man, a consumer country. All right, and it's not just America. There's other countries that are in bed with this whore that function in the same way. Just eating, constantly eating. Okay, and in that video, you saw it's a problem, man. It's such a problem that the trash is just building up. The landfills are getting more and more abundant. Okay, the overconsumption is getting is going through the roof. And this is in a so-called, recession. All right. This is with Americans. This is the weird part about it, man, because you got some people who can't even afford rent, but the philosophy, the wine of it, the idea of just buying shit, they can't shake, because it's so ingrained. And you heard that old man at the end, man. He was like, "This is the way we do things." It's not going to change. He's not worried about, losing business, because that's the way America, Babylon the Great is, man. It's like a big ass cancer, and it gives the illusion like you're rich, but really, it's cancerous, man. It's a problem, and that also goes into. And this is how Babylon the Great likes to do. They like to the upper elites. They like to create a thing called, or they like to deal in Hegelian dialectics. A quick definition. That's pretty good. This is Hegelian dialectics. I just found this on the internet, and I thought it was a pretty good definition. The Hegelian dialectic is where the ruling elite create a problem, anticipating in advance the reaction of the population to the crisis, and thus conditioning the people to call for change. So as you can see, the uproars of people Let's grab that real quick in Second Esdras. The uproars of people. Because this place is it's waxing worse and worse as far as complications in this quote unquote complications in the system, man. And that's by design. It's a part of that Hegelian dialectics. All right, let's go to Mark. 13:7. It's the book of Mark, chapter 13, and verse 7. Matter of fact, I'll go here with it.